Emergency planning, tax rates, and arts grants all at last night's town council meeting, and all on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Friday, November 16th, 2012. I'm Sarah Colvin. Chief of Police Paul McDonald serves as the town's emergency coordinator and last night presented an updated emergency plan to town council. The plan includes a discussion on traffic planning, and evacuation.
Traffic plans. There is a guide in the SEM plan that was developed by the town of Barnstable that establishes traffic control points as well as alternative pickup points throughout the town in the event that we have to evacuate the town of Barnstable. These traffic control points restrict and grant access to the main thoroughfares leading to the Mid-Cape Highway. The Mid-Cape Highway is the main roadway in the Cape Cod Emergency Traffic Plan, which was developed by MEMA and the Mass State Police. This plan is intended to facilitate the egress of a large volume of traffic from the Cape. However, it is not an evacuation plan. This plan guides and directs motorists towards both bridges as the only egress points from Cape Cod. This plan was developed as a direct result of Hurricane Edward back in 1996 when the state of emergency was declared and there was a 40-mile backup on Route 6 from the Sagamore Bridge. After that fiasco, they developed this Cape Cod Emergency Traffic Plan, but they do stress this is not an evacuation plan. It's an emergency traffic plan.
Town Manager Tom Lynch commented on the improvement in communication he noticed during recent Hurricane Sandy.
We have a paper, we have a plan, we have the disc that it was distributed to all of you, but I think what's impressive to me is to actually watch this plan that we have in practice and on paper actually implemented. And through Hurricane Irene and the superstorm, I've had the opportunity to sit with the chief and all of the department heads that are called together to report in, to let him know and us know just what those preparations are that are going on. We have a very experienced team. Mark has been through many storms himself, and Michael Perry and his team are ready to go. We've got contracts with groups that we're going to call in. We start implementing those phases well in advance of the actual time that the storm may hit. The thing that I noticed about this particular incident was the superstorm and also the nor'easter is that our communication between NSTAR and some of our other partners had increased. I think they learned some of their lessons through Irene, and you, as did I, got the robocalls and letting them know who to call, how to, and they now have a system where you can go on and track and find out just how many individuals and town or families may not have, power. They're updating that constantly. The chief has a liaison that he can talk to directly. It's also impressive to see the communication that goes on between, the police department, the DPW, when there's a downed tree and they're trying to keep roads open to be sure for public safety purposes we can get people to the hospitals. And
Councillor James Cote of Osterville asked a question that was surely on many minds.
Just one last question: Is the plan for a nuclear meltdown in effect? No.
Yes, they have to have a plan. They have to have a plan on file. They talk about a 5-mile radius and a 10-mile radius. We are certainly outside that radius, but then they talk about the 50-mile radius, and we were well within the 50-mile radius. If there is some type of mechanical malfunction or some type of terrorist event that happens at their plan, a lot depends on the prevailing winds and which way the winds are going. They talk about inhalation zones and I forget what they call it, ingestion zones. And if it goes through that zone, and if it crosses over the canal down towards, I believe, coming from the northeast, it goes down into Newburyport, which means you will not be able to leave the Cape via the bridges. It'll have to be through boat or plane.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But just one last thing on that. The Secretary of Public Safety, Kurt Schwartz, was down in Harwich about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, did make a presentation on that. Everyone voiced their concerns about that. So MEMA is looking at that and trying to come up with a more viable plan for that specific event.
Thank you.
Next up, councillors heard from Director of Assessing Jeff Rudziak, who prepared and presented the annual tax levy discussion.
2.5 sets a levy limit and a levy ceiling for us, which tells us how much we can actually allocate additionally above last year's levy. That's always going to be 2.5% of what last year's tax levy was, plus any new growth. This year, that ends up being the 2.5, plus we had about $766,000 in new growth. As you well know, we have a brand new supermarket out there, a couple of new car dealerships, a new fish market. It was a rather good year for new growth. So that all goes into the new taxable levy. And if there are any tax levy exclusions, that can be added in, and those can be debt exclusions, capital exclusions. We'll talk about the property values, shifting the tax levy options in a number of ways between the commercial, industrial, personal property class and the residential class, and up to a 20% exemption on residence homes, and whether you wish to adopt a 10% exemption on small commercial properties.
Rudziak discussed tax values for fiscal 2013.
So here we go. Our new total full and fair cash value, which is still under preliminary review by the Department of Revenue. They're getting longer every year for some reason, but they're still sitting on it. It's been there since October 9th. It will be $7.89 for a single tax rate. Last year's single tax rate was $7.59. So it's a 30-cent increase. This is very normal in relation to the amount of money that's being added to the levy and the new growth. This fits pretty much with that because we did not have a large value change in town this year. In FY12, the town council voted a 20% residential exemption. What that does, obviously, is increase the residential rate because it does not affect commercial, industrial, and personal property, and raises the residential rate because it removes all that exempted value from the calculation. So everybody pays a higher rate even though you may be getting an exemption. It was $842 for the residential properties, $759 for commercial, industrial, personal.
He also reminded residents that all of the information in his presentation, including that PowerPoint, can be viewed online at the town's website, town.barnstable.ma.us.
This is also to remind the watchers at home and anybody else you may need to tell, this is all on the town website right now as well. There's a strip right in the middle on the front that says Preliminary Property Tax Classification Workshop. They can click on that and get all this same information right up there.
For the past several years, Councilor has voted to adopt a 20% residential exemption, a tax factor of 1, and to not adopt the small business exemption. Town Council will vote on that matter at the December 6th meeting. Later on last night, Growth Management Director Joanne Miller-Buntich stepped to the podium to present information about a grant recently awarded to the town.
The Growth Management Department was encouraged, actually, to apply for this grant by the Artist Link grant program, and we were successful applicants, as were several other communities in Massachusetts. The interesting thing about this grant from our perspective is that Mass Cultural Council is looking to several communities in the state that they have determined have the capacity to create something new and different, and start a baseline analysis of these sorts of artist spaces, inventory what's existing, assess the need for other spaces. We're going to expand it a little bit. We're working on another initiative to include the whole of the creative economy, not just the arts and cultural sector. So we'll be using this money to hire a qualified consultant to help us with that work. And I neglected to put in the summary the staff that worked on this, and it was Elizabeth Jenkins, Principal Planner, Arden Cadron, our Special Project Coordinator for Housing, and Melissa Hirsch, our Arts and Culture Coordinator.
Councilors accepted that grant. You can watch the full meeting online at town.barnstable.ma.us. Council meets again on December 6th. They'll hold a public hearing on the proposed problem property ordinances at that time. A reminder for residents clearing up yard debris, the transfer station will accept hurricane and nor'easter debris through this Sunday, November 18th. Those with a residential sticker or proof of residency may drop off debris. Commercial debris is not accepted. All logs must be cut into lengths of 4 feet or less. With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.